So pre-collapse, everything is rigged in the economy, in the republic. In fact, the republic is being held hostage, and we're going to cover that, break this down. Pretty shocking revelation, some new, some old. I've covered some of these before, but I want to wrap it all up into a nice little present to show you, and so you know the facts and you know what you're dealing with. Great Rolling Stone article that came out, I think today or a few days ago, that really breaks down a lot of this. I've been talking about some of these things for now almost a year. And I think that if you're new to this channel, I want to welcome all the new subscribers. There's been a lot of you over the last couple of weeks. If you're unaware of this, if you think it's conspiracy, everything that I'm talking about here today is a fact. Don't take my word for it. Never take my word for it. Go look it up yourself. But it's all a fact. And this should be very, very troubling to you, to your friends, to your family. Most people, unfortunately, don't know their history and don't give a flying crap about any of this. I'll get to that more at the end. But pre-collapse, everything is rigged. The mega banks are in control of the whole economic infrastructure, really of everything. Think about what's rigged and what we've found out in just the last year. LIBOR rate, which is 500 to 800, I think it's more on the 800 trillion, or I know it is, of contracts globally. So commercial real estate, all kinds of finance rates or interest rates tied to the LIBOR rate in London is completely rigged. It's now been known that at least 2, maybe even 16 of the big mega banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Barclays, Deutsche Bank, all these big mega banks that were manipulating the LIBOR rate to basically get better rates, do whatever they wanted, inside deals, all kinds of stuff. Think about that. $800 trillion of the global economy being rigged by a few guys sitting in an office that think they can control the economy. Real estate. I've talked about real estate now for a very, very long time. My documentary film, the micro-documentary, Real Estate's Big Secret, House of Cards, Real Estate Big Secret, all about the pump and dump scheme underway currently as we live, totally manipulated. Media is owned, in fact, the big mega banks own 60%, assets equivalent to 60% of the total US GDP, 60%. In fact, many of the big banks own the media. There's only about 5 main media companies out there. Most of them not only owned by the mega banks, but if you look at the corporate board structure of about 100 of the biggest multinational companies, US or in the world, many of their people that sit on their boards sit on the big mega bank boards, and it's like this revolving door. So, LIBOR rate, real estate, media, bonds, municipal bonds. One thing that I didn't add in here is gold and silver. We know Andrew Maguire that came out, said that the silver markets were totally rigged. JP Morgan tried to run them over with a car and kill him and his wife, which I'll get to more of that in a second. So everything, municipal bonds, rigged. They came out, that's been almost 2 years ago, where they came out that JP Morgan was rigging the auctions for these bonds and doing it in a way where basically giving preferential treatment to certain banks over others, meaning that, hey, that sidewalk that your city just installed that you may have had to have paid higher taxes for, you might have had to pay more because there could have been a better rate that your city would have gotten. Now, what's interesting is the media, you would think like, oh my God, all of these things here, for the most part, deal with finances except the media. How's the media rigged? Well, they're not only owned by the big mega banks, but they play a central front, if you will, on this war in the Republic currently, on the war for the free markets, on the war for the freedom and liberty of all of us. Media plays a critical role. They are the mouthpiece of these banking cartels. And the way that they promote and enable the rigging is in 2 ways. The first is smoke screens they throw up, but the first is the insider trading, just as an example. They will throw up something that is minutia, like insider trading. Is it corrupt? Absolutely. Did we need to know about the insider trading to know the politicians have all been, sold out to the big mega banks or to the big multinationals? Of course not. We know, anybody knows that. I ran for public office 3 years ago. It was all about the money that you could raise. In fact, the guy that won the election outspent me like 50 to 1, I believe it was. All his money came from multinational corporations, big mega banks that are literally financing the campaign of local elections in your local town, in your city, in your state. So we have the insider trading. They'll promote something like insider trading, make it all crazy, be like, look at this. But then they don't talk about the LIBOR rate. They don't talk about the real estate manipulation. They don't talk about, the president's working group on financial markets and how they rig futures in the stock market. They don't talk about the now interest rate default swaps that are now been rigged. That's a $379 trillion market. Now they've implicated several of the big mega banks as well. The media doesn't talk about any of that. They talk about something as small as insider trading to focus the public's attention on that. That's one way they do it. Another way they promote is bank fines. These are my favorite. They'll say, Bank of America has been fined $3 billion in this big scary fine. Everybody's crazy, and they've celebrated how Obama is going after the banks, or Eric Holder is going after the banks, when the truth is that money is a mafia-style payoff that goes directly to the government. So the government says, calls up B of A. They're like, hey, we're going to fine you a few $1 billion. We know you're rigging, the LIBOR rate. We know you're rigging interest default swaps. We know you're rigging the bond market. You keep doing that. Just pay us a little money. We'll look the other way. That's all that this is. But the media promotes it and says, hey, big scary thing going on here. It's all rigged. I'll get to the scariest thing here in a second. But here's what you need to know is that we can look at this. We can expose it. The republic is being held hostage by the big banks. They're holding the free markets hostage. Ultimately, they will lose. But as an MIT professor quoted, a guy by the name of Andrew Lowe, he said, quote, that all this manipulation and rigging, that it dwarfs by order of magnitude any financial scam in the history of the markets. Wow, that's pretty big. In the history of financial markets, the rigging of the LIBOR rate and of the interest rate default swaps is the biggest of all time. Here's the scariest thing. The scariest thing is that these banking cartels think that they can control the free market, and they can't. History's proven this time and time again. Ultimately, they will lose. And the problem is that when they do lose, the repercussions won't just be felt by them. In fact, many of them are already, protecting themselves from the effects of their insanity. That's why I always tell you, learn something new, find some way that you can protect yourself from when all of this comes to an end. Because all of this will come to an end, and there will be some kind of global reset. My theory is that these banking cartels are already working on this. They're already preparing for it. They know it's coming. They see the handwriting on the wall. Do you? I think you do if you're watching these videos. But what are you doing about it? The scariest thing is that they think they can control the system, that they can control the global financial markets, that they can control you and I. Will we allow them to do that? That's ultimately a question that only you can answer for yourself. Posting the article below from the Rolling Stone magazine, I suggest you read it. It's a fantastic article. And next time your friends or family member talk to you about the stock market and how great it's doing, perhaps you can either show them this video or give them a little breakdown into the real pre-collapse economy and how everything is rigged. Check out FabianForLiberty.com. Thank you for watching. I'm out.